Okay, this video is going to show you how to do the making a sandwich assignment here in Adobe Photoshop. We're going to need the sandwich folder, which should be hanging out here in your period folder. You can see I've got it right here. It's called sandwich. If for whatever reason that is missing, you can always come into the assignment here on Canvas and download the zipped up folder by clicking on this link under the assignment. If you don't know how to unzip a zip folder, click on this link right here to watch the short video on how to do that. It's very short and help you out. So once you've got that sandwich folder, go ahead and right click on it and choose copy, and then go ahead and just right click on your own folder and choose paste. I'm not going to do that because I already have the files in there, but just paste that into your own folder and go in here, and here's our sandwich folder, and you can see I've got my 6 files. Here's my finished one, and I've just opened it up, and here's kind of what our finished product is going to look like. Check out my layers palette over here. See, each individual part of the sandwich on its own layer. It has its layer mask. If I go through and turn these all off and turn them on one at a time, you can see I got bread and then mayonnaise, then my roast beef, then a couple of tomatoes, then some bacon, some cheese, and then my last piece of bread. So this assignment is going to walk you through exactly how to do that. Let's go ahead and close this. And let's start by going to File, New, and let's change this to inches. Make sure we're working in inches. We're going to do 10 inches by 10 inches at 150 pixels per inch. That's a good size for these files that we're using. So go ahead and press OK. And then let's go to File, Open, and let's get to that sandwich folder. Here it is. And let's just start with the bread. Let's just open one file at a time. We don't need to open all 6 of them. That's just going to slow Photoshop down. And this is going to be our bottom piece of bread, and this over here is going to be our top piece of bread. So how do we cut this out? Well, first thing we always do is duplicate the layer. Easiest way to do that is Control J. That will duplicate a layer for you. And then I'm going to grab my quick selection tool, and as long as that plus sign is in the middle there, whatever I click and drag on, it's going to add to that selection. So I'm going to just keep going around, and you can see it's got too much here. It's got some of the board. I'm going to worry about that later. I'm just going to check the edges of my bread here. Make sure I got a nice, good selection where it is doing its job. A little bit there and there. But now I've got way too much all the way around here. So to get rid of that, I press and hold the Alt key. You can see the plus sign in the middle of my circle turn into a minus sign. I'm just going to come down the edge of the bread here on the cutting board behind it. Make sure I'm getting all this random stuff. And let's stop and check it. Now would be a good time coming here. Maybe a little click right there. Clean that up. And then maybe a little Alt click right there. Clean up that edge. That's looking pretty good. Let's come up here, holding down the Alt key. Still trying to clean up this edge. Getting a pretty good job. I'm going to try to add that part right back in right there. And this is just all about taking the time to do it right, you guys. There's no secret other than just taking the time to add in your edges that it's missing, to subtract your edges that it's added, and just going around and taking the time and doing the best you can to get a pretty good selection. And I'm pretty happy with that right there. But let's hit the Refine Edge button up here and see if we can't clean it up a little bit. So a little Refine Edge right there. Remember, whenever we do Refine Edge, we start by resetting all of our boxes to 0. I'm just going to do that by pressing the Tab key and pressing 0 in each box. And I always start with the radius. I'm going to take that as high as it goes. And that looks terrible, obviously. Let's switch to a black background so I can see it a little bit better. I'm just going to start slowly bringing this down until I start to see a good edge around here. And that looks pretty good right there. But what the radius does is it softens the edges a little bit. So in order to bring some of that hardness back in the edge, I'm going to bring the contrast up. Now the contrast, I don't ever take it farther right than the radius slider. So if the radius slider is there, the contrast is never going to go past it. So I always go to about here. I just bring that back a little bit, and I'm just looking for a little bit of hardness to come back in the edge of that bread there. And that looks pretty good. Now, the edge of bread is rough and crumbly, and it's supposed to kind of have this textured look. If it didn't, we could take the smoothness and take it all the way up, but then it doesn't look real because bread isn't smooth like that. It's crumbly and rough. So we probably won't do much smooth, maybe just 10 or so points there. Bread also does not have a soft edge, so we're not going to bring the feather up because the feather gives us that soft edge. We don't want that. Maybe 1 or 2 at the most there just to soften it up just a tiniest bit. And then contract or expand, I don't really ever use these. That makes my selection a little bit bigger. That makes it a little bit smaller. But if I did my job right, I shouldn't need to use contract or expand very much at all. So put that one back at 0. And I'm going to go ahead and press OK. And that's given me a good edge there that I can work with. Now all I got to do is add a layer mask with this button right here. Turn my background layer off so I can see and be like, all right, that looks pretty good. Let's grab my move tool and click and drag it over into my new canvas. It's obviously a little too big, so let's Control T, hold down Shift, drag from the corner. And we want to leave some room around the bread, but we don't want it to be too small. That's a pretty good size right there, so try to match that. And I'm actually going to leave the bread open because we're going to come back later and get that other piece of bread over here, but we'll worry about that. Well, let me show you how I would do that. Really what I would do is I would just Control Alt Z, and then from here I just Control D to get rid of that selection. And I still have my layers set up right, so now I'll just grab the quick selection tool, keyboard shortcut W, and I'm going to do the same thing now with this piece of bread over here. Same steps that we did just in the other one, but I will make you watch me do that. So I'm going to leave that one open for now. Then I'll go to File, Open again. Next, let's do some mayonnaise. Let's put the mayonnaise on next. That seems to be logical. And again, I'm going to duplicate the layer by pressing Control J. I'm going to use my quick selection to try to get a good selection of the mayonnaise. And what I want is, I want this edge. I don't want this right here because that's not going to look right. I don't want all this dark yellow stuff around the edge. What I want is the white stuff right here on the top. So you can see what happened is it just kind of jumped to the whole bowl. So again, with the quick selection tool selected, hold down the Alt key and go around the edge. And you should see Photoshop do a pretty good job of getting what we're interested in. I don't know how it knows what part I wanted and what part I didn't. But that right there is almost exactly what I want. I didn't want any of this out here. I don't want this right here, so I got to grab my quick selection, hold down Alt, and get that right there. That looks pretty good. I do actually want to get a little bit of this, so I'm going to try and get some of this down here. And that's it right there. I'm actually going to get rid of a little bit of that. That's perfect. That's what I wanted right there. So, refine edge. Remember, reset everything to 0. I do that. I click in here and I select it by clicking and dragging. 0, tab, 0, tab, 0, tab, 0. And to get all my boxes reset to 0. Okay, so here we go. I got everything set to 0. Let's start again with the radius. Bring it all the way up. Yikes, that looks terrible. Let's start slowly bringing it back until I got a nice edge. Looks pretty good. I'm going to go to about 4 there. Bring my contrast up. Again, I won't go to past the radius, so I'll just come down here. I like that, about 15. Smooth is probably not a bad idea on this one. We probably want some smooth, so I'm going to take the smooth all the way up and actually just bring it down just a little bit. And I actually really want a soft edge on this so that it kind of looks like it's blending into the bread. So I'm going to bring my feather up too. Not that much, but maybe right about there. I really like the look of that. So about 31 for my feather. And again, contract and expand. If I did my job right, I shouldn't really need that. So go ahead and press OK. Add a layer mask by clicking the layer mask button. Turn off the background layer. Grab your move tool, click and drag this over to our new canvas. Let's plop it on the bread there. I'm going to do Control T, make this a little bit bigger. And because this is so non-distinct, I'm going to break my main rule. I'm going to stretch this out a little bit. Just kind of like that to fill up the bread a little bit. And then I want to show you something that makes it a little bit more realistic. Usually when you put mayonnaise on bread, you can see a little texture of the bread through the mayonnaise. Well, we want that. So let's come over here. Let's lower down the opacity of that layer to about 70% to make the bread to make the mayonnaise a little bit more see-through. You see, we can see a little bit of the bread through there. And I'm pretty happy with that. I like that a lot. Okay, we can close the mayonnaise. We are done with that. I'm going to show you how to do one more, and then you're on your own for the rest. So here we go. File, open. Let's do the let's do the roast beef next. All right, so here we go with the roast beef. Control J, of course. Turn off the background layer. Quick selection. Come in here, and this should be a pretty easy selection. Come around here. not a bad idea to kind of zoom in and check. I zoom in, hold down the space bar to move your image around. I'm going to get this edge right here and see if I can get it without including too much additional stuff. I'm going to hold down Alt key, clean this up a little bit. Right there. Again, it's just about taking the time, doing it right. You see down here it missed a little bit, so I'm going to see if I can add that back in. And then down here it included the shadow. We don't want that, so let's hold down Alt. Come in and clean up that shadow's edge. And then a little more shadow over here. We should be pretty good after I get these. And there you go. We're just going to do this side of the roast beef. Refine edge. Now reset everything to 0. Do a 0, tab, 0, tab, 0, tab, 0. And start with the radius. We're actually going to have a little bit higher radius on this than we've had on other objects. Probably around 25 or so. Contrast. Bring it up to there and back it off just a little bit. Happy with that. Probably not a whole lot of smooth. Roast beef isn't real smooth. It's got a lot of texture and bumpiness to it, so we won't do much, and we won't do much feather at all. And go ahead and press OK. Throw a layer mask on there. Grab the move tool. Drag it over. And again, resize it so that it fits. And there you go. Go ahead and close your roast beef. And just keep on going. Do me a favor. Get your bacon on there. Get your cheese on there. What else is there? And just some tomato. If you want to do 2 slices of tomato, go for it. Get all the bacon on there because you can never have too much bacon on your sandwich. And then just do 1 piece of cheese. Just do this top piece of cheese. And then do this other side of the bread to put it on top. And when you are done, when you get to this step, I want you to go through and make sure that you can see a little bit of every layer from the top. So here's the bacon, here's the cheese, here's the tomato sticking out, here's the roast beef. Obviously, I'm not going to see the mayonnaise sticking out, and that's okay. But a good way to do it, just go through and turn each layer on individually. So start with the mayonnaise, then the roast beef. Okay, I can see a little bit of that. A couple of tomatoes, the bacon, and then the cheese. I had to turn my cheese diagonally by doing Control-T and rotating it so that I could see it sticking out a little bit better. And then put the last piece of bread on, and then just double check. Can I see all my layers? If so, great. Once you are done, go to File, Save. Make sure you save this as a PSD in your own folder, just like we always do. It's what we do for every assignment. But what we're going to be differently with this one is we're going to go to File, Save As, and when we put this in the grading folder, put it in the sandwich folder, and we're going to save this as a PSD. Normally we save things as a JPEG in here, but this time we're going to save them as a PSD so that I can go through and look and make sure you did all your layers correctly. And if you did, you're going to get full credit on this assignment. There you go.